Hello, I'm Clark Farley.
And I'm Denise Fasaro, and we are having an expert visit us this evening to answer some of your mortgage questions. But this week on the, you messed that up. This week on the 20-minute real estate briefing, money, answers to all your financing questions.
I totally rewrote the beginning because
messed me up.
Expert advice says you got to grab them. So
Yeah.
Come on and watch. So
this week, our special guest is Ann Sabbagh from Seacoast Mortgage. She'll address the most frequent questions that home buyers ask. So have your questions ready to add to the chat box. But before we bring Ann out, a quick intro to anyone new to the briefing. Welcome. We are live from Randall Realtors in Westerly, Rhode Island. We invite you to spend a little time as we share our insights and experiences, tips and tactics acquired over quite a few years. Our goal, help you become a better buyer and a skilled seller. Remember to hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and like us on Facebook. You can view all our past briefings on both platforms. YouTube, I think, is a little easier to find us on. Check out, please subscribe, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we do a weekly Where in South County Are We? And so come join the fun, see if you can check out the local landmarks, and see if you can guess where we are.
in South County.
And if you have any suggestions for topics, send them in, or our email address is at the bottom of the screen. We also have our phone numbers down there, or you can put something in the chat box.
The chat box is useful. In fact, stay tuned on the chat box because you'll have a chance to write in questions specifically to Ann. You can also respond to the question I'll be asking in what's left of my portion of the intro, because Denise kind of chopped that thing up. So if you'll scroll down to where I get to talk. No, it was back up high. Oh, she doesn't want me to say this. Guess what I'm going to say? Hey, the fact is, if you're watching us, you're the type of buyer or seller that any agent worth their license would totally want to have for a client. Informed and focused. Those two qualities, that's all you really need. Before we get started further, Denise just told you where we are. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. You know, if you're from Westerly or from Exeter or from where? Idaho, then
Clark really wants somebody from Idaho to watch us.
I'll totally be able to retire from this whole venture once somebody from Idaho writes in and convinces us that they are. To talk a brief overview to the episode tonight, this is one of the key elements to our whole 20-minute briefing is building a team. If you're a buyer, especially a first-time buyer, building a team before you do anything else is the key to reduce stress and greater success.
And we're really big about reducing stress. So your team would consist of your real estate agent, of course, a finance person, an inspector, and the legal person who needs to do the closing, whether it's an attorney or a title company, depending on where you live. And so that's why we're bringing in some of these experts to tell you about what they can do for you before you even start looking for a house, or what they can do for you during the process of looking for a house, and what you need to do to make your job less stressful.
Yeah, because it's the kind of thing that most people would do in other circumstances, but we're talking a first-time buyer here a lot, is that before you even look at a house, if you interview people, mortgage lenders, inspectors, the whole thing is you're out to get a house under contract. Once you get a contract, control of time is taken away from you. You do it when the contract says. That's not the time to go shopping for inspectors or finance people. Do it all ahead of time, and then you can call them up and say, hey, good news. We got a contract.
Well, I really think the real estate agent and the finance person are your top priorities for if you're going to put anything else off in choosing. Those are not the two you put off. No. Because your realtor is going to want to know you're pre-qualified, and our expert will explain about that. But
well, heck, we've talked about it in previous shows. She'll, as the expert, she would be able to tell you. Very often people say, well, what kind of mortgage should I get? Huge thing.
Yeah. So today we have finance expert Ann Sabbagh she's the president of Seacoast Mortgage Corporation. And welcome, Ann.
Thank you, Denise and Clark. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Yes. Where do we start?
You can go first. If anyone has any questions, please don't forget to put them in the comment box.
Okay, I got to say hello to some people. Phyllis, say hello to Phyllis.
Phyllis said hi, and so did Alex.
Oh, okay, good. I wrote this, so I'll pronounce it properly. We were talking before the show, by the way, with Ann.
Yeah, Ann, how do you say your last name?
Say back, say forward, say back. That's how you say it phonetically.
Say back.
Oh,
say
man.
back. Ah,
I would have gotten that wrong.
Yeah, I did get it wrong twice.
That would be only your first mistake, Clark. So that's all right.
All right.
Well, we both worked with Ann in the past. She's renowned for the person who can pull the rabbit out of the fire, to mix a metaphor.
Yeah.
So could you give our viewers a little quick intro view for yourself, or tell us?
Absolutely. So I have two beautiful children, Kimberly and Allison, who have joined Seacoast Mortgage, which has been around for almost 20 years come January. They're both loan officers, and I got in the business after corporate finance. I graduated from Bryant College, went to Suffolk for my master's in finance and also computer science. I also have my financial planning degrees, which makes me kind of a two-for shop, where I can answer financial planning questions for a mortgage client, which comes in very handy nowadays with the stock market being so high. Should they do a withdrawal from a 401k or do a loan from a 401k to buy a home to get rid of PMI with 20% down? What are those options? What's the tax ramifications of those options? So after I graduated, I went to a Fortune 500 company. I had my first child, and I decided I needed to stay home with my children, and got into financial planning, and then segued into mortgages. And here I am, almost 25 years in, still doing mortgages and absolutely loving it.
And now your daughters are doing it too.
Now my daughters are doing it too. Yes, one is we recently opened up a Newport branch over on Thames Street, which will have our grand opening soon. We have a location in North Kingstown, and one in Pawtucket, and one in Auburn, Mass.
Oh, good. I didn't know about the Massachusetts one. That's good to know.
Yes. Yeah. We're licensed in 5 states: Mass, Rhode Island, Florida, Connecticut, and New Jersey, if you know anybody down there.
Well, we appreciate you doing the Rhode Island, Connecticut thing, because we in here in Westerly are right on the line. So that helps us a lot.
And I can appreciate when you were talking about the various complexities of financing nowadays, is that back in the day, being the guy with the white hair, we would actually take the buyer to the bank, and we would sit there for 2 hours in front of the branch manager, and they would do the whole thing. That changed real fast. And, doing this every day as I do, it's like, talk to the expert about that. I know there are mortgages. I know the types. I'm familiar with it, but no way I would attempt to try and not only explain it, but let somebody understand what's best for them for financing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane, as they say, right, Clark? And you do a very good job at it. Every transaction I've done with you and Denise, you're very thorough. I don't have to worry about a buyer asking me what's the next step. It's amazing. I'll have buyers say, well, I signed a contract. Now what? And I'm like, well, you need a home inspection. Well, who should I call? Like, I don't get those questions from seasoned professional realtors that I do business. And
that surprised me. That was a shock. I didn't know that they would ask you that, because they asked, that's what we are supposed to do.
Right. That's your lane.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So at that point, I'm like, well, I can refer, a home inspector, but as you know, that's a big part of the whole process. So I usually send them back to the realtor. Dealing with professionals like yourselves, you handle that, and I can just stay in my lane, which is nice. So thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, it makes life simpler for all of us.
Yes.
So with the current market and everything that's going on right now, what's the one thing that stands out to you as a financing expert that somebody might want to know currently in this busy market?
Well, I had a economics teacher at Bryant, and I'll never forget a few of the things he said. And one of the things he said, if it makes sense now, do it. Don't wait for tomorrow. The rates are still in the 2s. I had someone call me today. She's paying $2,000 a month in rent. So I said, do you know for $325,000 a home with 3.5% down, you can actually be a little bit shy of $2,000. I can get you around $1,900 a month. She's like, that's amazing. I said, because the rates are so low.
Right.
So, I mean, now she says, she's going to be able to accumulate equity. We're renter. What are you accumulating? You're accumulating rent receipts.
Mhm.
No, no.
Right.
So she's
You're paying
game
someone
on.
else's mortgage then.
Right. Paying
Right.
someone else's mortgage. And she says,
Mhm.
Ann, I've been renting for 10 years, $2,000. He's going up to 2,100. I want to buy.
Mhm.
So she's thrilled. 3.25. She thought she can only buy around 260.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah,
yes,
I
if it
do
makes sense, do it.
Yeah, I do a lot with renters, and I'm always surprised because rents are so high right now. And it's like, how come you're not buying? And then I'll put them in touch with someone like you, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm a hero, because I told them that don't rent, buy.
Right. I always say to realtors, go after these apartment complexes that have high rents.
Mhm.
Do you know Rhode Island is one of the highest rental states in the nation per capita?
Really?
I mean, it's amazing how many people don't understand that for so little down, you can go buy a house
Mhm.
and be trained by professionals like yourself on how to go about doing that.
So in the current market, I mean, it's very difficult for people to buy a house right now, to find a house, put an offer in and buy. So you've pulled a credit. Well, why don't we talk about pre-qualification first? Because then we can lead into that. So
Yeah, I have a question actually myself from a client that I'm showing houses to. And in this market, technically the term is the crazy market we're in. He brought his own financing with him. He had a pre-qual for our first offer and then didn't go through. Okay. We go to the second one 3 weeks later. But the issue came up, or he raised the issue. Is that a problem for a buyer to get a new pre-qual or old, updated? What do you do when you got buyers asking for a pre-qual every 3 weeks?
Right. So credit lasts for 60 days. What I do with clients, if somebody comes to me and they're an 800 score, even after 60 days, I'm not going to pull their credit again because it could go down 200, 150 points and still be good. And, you usually once you do this often enough, just like you do, selling real estate, you realize who's going to maintain the good credit. Now, if I pull a credit score of 640, all right, I'm going to pull it again in 60 days for sure, because I'm going to be nervous about it. But when I pull that credit, I always say to the client, especially the 640, don't breathe. Don't go out and buy a car. Don't go out and buy furniture. And I train them on how to have good credit. Like a lot of people don't know, you should only spend a third of what's available. So if you have available $1,000 on a credit card, you should not spend more than $333 on that card. They'll say, well, Ann, I pay it off every month. I charge $1,000 and I pay it off. Nope. The system sees that you're living off credit. So you should never charge more than a third. And that's how people climb up to that 850 credit score.
I've always been kind of surprised at the non-intuitive nature of the credit scores. Somebody once in your field told me that because I had a buyer who said, well, my score is low, I've got credit card, I'll just pay it all off. And the finance person said, not necessarily the right thing to do. Which is
right. Mortgage companies, I don't know about banks, but mortgage companies have what's called a credit repair rapid update system, where we run the report and it tells you exactly what you need to do to increase your credit score. I had somebody the other day came in with a 584. In 1 week, I got her up over 620.
Wow.
And 620 is a pivotal number in lending because it gets you a decent interest rate and it opens up the FHA program. Not that you can't get an FHA loan with a 580, but they ask you for what you had for breakfast. I mean, you don't want to go down that road. 620, it's more of a lean, streamline process once you hit 620. So mortgage companies, we spend our time in these rapid updates to get the client there, to make it easier to get them to a closing table.
Well, that's good to know too. I just recently found out that when we pull credit for rentals when a tenant wants to rent, and that's a hard pull, and I didn't know that. So it does affect their credit score.
Oh yes.
With rentals are just as difficult to find right now as houses are. So if they've gone to one landlord and had their credit pulled and they didn't get the house, and then they go to another landlord and he pulls their credit, their credit is declining quickly because all these landlords are pulling their credit. And then they're, I've had houses where I've had 6 or 7 applicants, for rent. So, it's a big deal about credit. And a lot of times even we don't know what is happening to the score when you pull it. So that's really good information to have.
But we're in that position that started the question, which is having buyers.
Right.
Buyers need, it depends on the other side, the listing agent, if they want to, if the amount of the pre-qual. In other words, nobody's going to take an offer seriously without a pre-qual of some form. So then the question becomes, do you get a brand new one, or
well, I think she's saying that you would write up another one for them if it was a good score to start with, right?
Right, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
As long as it was within that 60-day period.
Even after the 60 days, I'll ask them, have you done anything? Have you gone to buy a car? The worst thing you could do is buy a car during a process, because the auto people, they pull your credit. Oh my God, I've seen as many as 15 times. Oh. Somewhere we sign on a dotted line to go shop this interest rate for a car. So that's the worst thing somebody can do, is go buy a car during the loan process. But as long as they've been good, I don't need to repull credit with an 800, 750 score. No.
And I want to be clear, because it's even after you've been accepted to buy a house. You don't go out and buy appliances. We've had this conversation on this show before, that once you've started your financing process, even if it's, you're in the process of buying the house, you got accepted, your offer got accepted, you can't spend money.
Well, we had a whole briefing on the 10 things you shouldn't do. And actually one of them was real for me, that they did go out and buy a car after contract before closing. And you think, oh my God, that's not such a good
and don't change jobs either.
Well, you can actually change jobs if you're in the same line of work.
Right, in the same line of work.
Same line of work.
Yeah, because my niece, she had 3 jobs, and she switched to one job that made more money than those 3 jobs, and she no longer qualified because it was not in the same line of work.
That's a little issue.
Yeah, but luckily my nephew qualified, so he was fine. They bought the house anyway. So, so what would you be telling a first-time home buyer? What the most important thing
to bring to you when you sit down
bring to you?
So when a buyer comes in first time or second time buyer, you want to always remember to bring a Noah's Ark. It's 2 of everything. You need 2 pay stubs, 2 bank statements, 2 years of taxes, and 2 years of W-2s. And that's your simple qualification. Now, some people just want to talk over the phone. You can usually tell with somebody's job whether or not, they're making the money that they are. All right. But to do a real good pre-approval and not a pre-qual, you should get copies of pay stubs and W-2s. I do like doing that. With self-employed people, 100% need the tax returns, 100%. Now, with this whole COVID pandemic, what's happened is the self-employed people have lost income, as you know. So it's a challenging underwrite to get self-employed people mortgages. Well, that could be a whole other 20-minute episode. I don't want to whole time there, but that's what you need when you qualify and pre-approve. I don't like the pre-qual. I go right for the pre-approval.
Yeah, I like the pre-approvals better, and they're easier when we're talking to sellers if you've been pre-approved.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval?
Yeah, the pre-qual is you're not looking at anything, and you may only pull 1 credit bureau, which is also not good, because lenders, we take the middle. We take out the high, take out the low, we use the middle score. So the pre-approval is a tri-merge from all 3, and we're looking at pay stubs and W-2s and possibly tax returns if they're self-employed. That way I know with certainty you're going to a closing within 30 days.
That's good.
And that brings home the whole thing we were talking about in the introduction. The time to be talking to you about these things is before you're in a contract, because when you're in a contract, as we all know here, you've got X number of days to do it, which for a lot of people is find the person first and then, understand what they're doing. And to do all of this, we're recommending to people, do it before you go see the first house. Sit down with Ann or sit down with an inspector or talk to them and learn this stuff. Get ready, have it done. Then all they have to do is call you and say, hey, where do I send the contract?
Yeah, I know people who, are online checking out everything when they're buying a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
But yet they come to us to buy a house and they're just not ready at all.
And their biggest investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A mortgage, who do we call? Oh, well, let's go to those guys on TV. No, don't go to the guys on TV.
Yeah.
So
what's your most challenging part of your average day, Ann?
Okay.
Most challenging part is, there's a lot of new people in the industry right now. And that's challenging for me. You know, educating that first-time realtor doing their first or second transaction. It's not the buyers. I love first-time buyers. Like I'm like totally love them. But it's the new professionals that I have a little challenge with. Attorneys, new paralegals, new underwriters. You know, people have gotten burnt out because of how crazy it's been. Underwriters have quit. Appraisers have quit. As you know, some appraisals aren't coming in. So there's a challenge there, arguing about, you know, certain values. And I do say sometimes arguing because appraisers are burnt out.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a challenge. But the buyers actually aren't the challenge.
No. Well, they're not supposed to know the job.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not supposed to know it. It's the professionals that are supposed to know it. And you're right. I have said the same thing myself. It's the other professionals that give me the most angst in my job.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to stay in your own lane, but sometimes I had to play attorney this morning, you know, and then it's just,
To an attorney?
No, to the paralegal.
Oh, okay.
But okay, so do we want to ask the weird question? Or?
Yeah, ask the weird question.
I like this question. We asked Emma. We had Emma, our broker manager, a few weeks ago, and the strangest things that has happened. Can one come to mind in your world, doing mortgages or what have you? Anything really stand out for?
You know what I love about this business, and my daughter has said it. You know, every day is different. And, you know, I remember one time somebody knocked on the door over here, came in and was crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? She says, I have a family, 2 young children, and I'm homeless. I'm like, what happened? She says, I sold my home. And I'm like, oh, what's that for? And she says, well, it was a Tuesday. And she says, I'm supposed to be closing on Friday on my new home. And I just was told by the mortgage company, they're denying me. I said, come right on in. Come in. I cleaned off my desk. And I said, let's dig into this. And, you know, after an hour and a half, I had her go run home and get tax returns. Her husband was self-employed. He actually is a barber. And the other loan officer didn't use his income. And I'm like, why wouldn't your other loan officer use income? Well, I just mentioned it wasn't a lot of income. And I said, well, the person never asked for your tax returns? No. He had just enough of income. I also lowered her rate, had to lower her rate. And I also had her shop insurance. Between those 3 things, I didn't close her Friday, not that good. But in 2 weeks, she was in a home.
Wow, that's terrific.
Right. So, like, you know, weird things like that happen. But those weird things just give me, like, you could probably tell, I get an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Really do. It's like, oh, somebody said no to you. I had another person. Her husband divorced her, left her with 2 children and said, you'll never have another home.
Yeah.
He had been to 4 different loan officers, heard about me and said, you know, I figured I'd try. I heard you were also a financial planner. And so with her, what happened is she needed credit repair. And what I was just discussing earlier, it took me 3 weeks, but I credit repaired her. Usually only takes about a week, week and a half. But with her, she had a couple of things going on because the husband didn't pay some bills. But we got her into a home within 60 days.
Wow, that's terrific.
That's
a great sense of accomplishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love real estate is that when we have those closings and, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's a first-time home buyer or a retiree or whoever it is, they just bought a house. It's so exciting.
It is, isn't it?
It really is.
You remember when you bought your
is.
first house. It is exciting.
It is.
And my experience wasn't good when I bought my first.
It's kind of sad we don't get to go to the closings anymore, though, because you kind of miss that whole thing now, you know, so.
The photo opportunity, right, Denise?
Right, exactly, you know, and handing the keys over and that whole thing. It's just
popping the champagne.
Right. So, well, Ann, thank you very much for joining us. It was a great show.
And I trust you'll come back again sometime.
Absolutely. You can always pick a topic, and I'll be here for you, Clark and Denise. Thank you so much for having me.
And
Thank
that's,
you.
Okay, and that's Seacoast.
Seacoast Mortgage.
Seacoast Mortgage. Do you
Financing
want
is
to
smooth
put your
sailing.
phone number out there?
Sure, it's 401-475-1600.
Well, do you want to say that one more time?
Sure, 401-475-1600.
Okay, and we're going to put that up on the page in a minute, and you can show that. There's Ann's number right there if anybody missed it, and that'll be showing up on our tape on YouTube. So check us out on YouTube, and please subscribe to us, and we will be back here next Wednesday at 5:30.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
So long. And broadcast.